And he was sick. One of my graduates. One of my graduates from daycare. Yeah, he came up to us. I listened to them. Lucky I didn't have any dogs because I just walked out. I had them on the leash. I was like, yeah.
Even though there's nothing here for you.
No, it's a quiet meeting for me.
Always figure it out. I'm here for
Karen said the meeting's gonna be done at 7:45, we're throwing up the hockey game on the screen. I got the last part.
Do they live stream it?
I saw something that was being live
It's gonna be
streamed.
live streamed,
Yeah.
Saranac, Eric Bennett at Saranac.
Oh, Good Guy Production?
Had it set up.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. So it's gonna be-
I saw
I've
the
got
link.
It's at the section 7.
Sectional championship,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's on the section 7.
Oh, is it on the section
It
seven?
will be.
Executive session.
Why drive now? We're doing more on TV. With comfy sweatpants and shoes and flippers.
Take a nap in the
Well, I was watching the video.
Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
Not yet. You have it right in front.
Are you streaming?
Yes.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the good of the cause. This is where the Board of Education encourages public participation on school-related matters. We have 2 of these. We have one at this point and then one at the conclusion or towards the conclusion of the meeting to address various items on the agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to approach the board and speak? Please.
Good evening. My name is John Berth. I was here at the last meeting to discuss the addition of a girls modified lacrosse team. I'm here for the same purpose tonight. My 2 daughters, Kelsey and Tyler, both in 6th grade at the middle school in Saranac Lake. And as I mentioned last time, I've been coaching Tri-Lakes Youth Lacrosse since they were in 1st grade. I just had a couple of follow-up comments from my past discussion. And the first is just an update on the number of players that we've been talking about as far as the potential for adding a modified team. I know there recently was a sign up in Saranac Lake, and I'm not sure what the overall numbers were to that. I know obviously it was a sign up without a modified team in place. And I think actually there were a couple of varsity girls that are interested in playing varsity that just expressed that interest. I believe it was last Friday, so they may not have signed up. One senior actually was added to the list who hadn't played before. And that actually, by the way, is one of the great things I found about lacrosse and coaching it is if the girls are, if they want to run, they can definitely contribute on the field. And, you know, eye-hand coordination as far as catching and throwing will come. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's become so popular. That being said, we did do some follow-up directly with parents to see what the interest is. And as of right now, we have 31 7th through 12th graders who want to play lacrosse. If a modified team is added, there's going to be 3 more that will want to join, so that would give us 34. So I've compiled this list, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, the modified could be for 7th, 8th, or 9th graders. And, you know, understanding there may be some younger players that could play up. 9th graders would be good for, modified would be a good fit. So at 34, it would work out to about 17 per team. And that's without actually advertising, you know, having a modified team. So there may be others that want to give it a try, that number would go up. 17 is a really good number for a team, 12 on the field at a time, with some subs, so everybody can get involved. 31, the first number I mentioned, if we have 31 and only a varsity, that's way too many players. That's, they're just not going to have the opportunity to play. The other thing I just wanted to mention is I understand that we are, you know, obviously pushing up against the start time for a season this year. That being said, you know, there's 7 teams in our league. 6 of them all have modifieds. We do not. And, you know, obviously, ideally, it would be a 12-game schedule, a home and away. If for some reason that's not possible because of the timing, I still think it's worthwhile, you know, even if it was a reduced schedule, for example, 6 games, 7 games, whatever the case may be, I think there would be benefit to doing that as opposed to, once again, just having a varsity team with 31 players and girls not getting that opportunity. As I mentioned, I think in the last meeting, you know, as far as moving forward, we are looking at 11 6th graders on our Tri-Lakes team this year. So they will be becoming 7th graders next year and potentially able to play modified. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you again for having it on the agenda and considering the addition of the team.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board?
I would.
Okay.
And actually, most of what I have written, it's funny, John covered some of it. My name is Mark Allen. I think I know most of you here at the table. Hi, guys. My daughter, Nora, has played lacrosse since she was in kindergarten. One of the things I wanted to add to John's cleat or whatever we're calling this. Last year was really interesting. Nora played on the 5th through 7th team, and they actually won their division against teams like Messina, Potsdam, Watertown. They won that, but they also did it with, in certain tournaments, they had to loan players to smaller schools so that they could field a full team. So in talking about numbers coming up through, that's 5th through 7th graders, and there's a lot of girls who want to keep playing lacrosse and have expressed that interest to play and keep going to the next level. So we're just looking for that, you know, next level for them to jump to. You know, varsity when you're in 7th grade or 8th grade is a pretty scary place to go. So we're just looking to bridge that gap and keep this great program. The Tri-Lakes Lacrosse is a great program, great kids going through there, and we just want to keep that momentum going. So appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Step up, guy.
Good evening, my name is Kelsey Berth, and I am currently in 6th grade at Saranac Lake Middle School, and I've been playing lacrosse with Tri-Lakes Lacrosse for 6 years now, and I love playing the sport of lacrosse, and when I am done with Tri-Lakes, I do not want to have to stop playing because there's no option for modified lacrosse. So I'm asking you to please consider adding a girls modified lacrosse team.
Thank you very much.
My name is Stephanie Kilborn-Hill, and I'm in 6th grade, and I've been playing lacrosse since I was in 1st grade. And I really want a modified lacrosse team because I don't want to waste like 4 years just waiting on the sidelines and watching the varsity girls play when I could be getting a lot better and modified, having a lot more fun.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Tyler Bird. I am in 6th grade at the Saranac Lake Middle School. I've been playing lacrosse since I was in 1st grade, and I have loved it ever since. Last year, when I moved into the last age group of Tri-Lakes lacrosse, I began to think about what would happen when I left Tri-Lakes. So I began to ask around. And I didn't exactly like what I found out. I found out that we do not have a girls modified lacrosse team or even a JV. And truthfully, I got scared. What if I wasn't big enough, strong enough to make varsity? And even if I did make varsity, what if I just had to sit in the bench? And honestly, even the possibility of not being able to play in my sport is terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here today to talk about why I, as a lacrosse player, would want to have a girls modified lacrosse team. And it's the other young women on my team and I love the sport of lacrosse. And all we want is the opportunity to better ourselves at the sport.
I'll add my name to the list. I'm on later, but anyway, my daughter plays with these girls, and she is a dancer, and she will honestly probably not play lacrosse this year, which is really sad. But the opportunity for these girls to be able to play would be really awesome. I think the idea of her going and playing on a varsity sport scares the pants off of her, right now. And the idea of her being able to play modified if she decides that, you know, dance is not really her thing, that would be really cool for her. I started playing lacrosse in 9th grade. I showed up at a school that had a 3rd team, which was our version of modified, a JV and a varsity. We fielded all 3 teams. I never played varsity. I never played varsity sport until college. But having the opportunity to play and constantly play really helped me as a player. If had I been on the varsity team with 30 other girls, I would have never seen the light of day, except for practice. So I think it's really important that we give our girls a chance. I think anytime we can add more opportunities for girls to play sports, it only helps them. So I really urge you guys to take a close look at the modified team. I think it would be a great option for our kids. So thanks.
Thank you.
Now I'll sign the other.
Anyone else? As you know, we'll be taking up this discussion later on in the meeting. So. If there's no one else to address the board, we'll move on to reports to the board. The first is Wayne Rogers is with us. Thank you for coming. Wayne is the Regional 6 Director for NISBA. And is here for a presentation.
Very interesting listening to the discussion on lacrosse, because that's also on our table. I think we're a little bit behind you and Malone. We just have an informal group, but it's in our budget, not a big piece, but it's it's another opportunity for children, and that's what we're about. The reason we're here today is because of what you have done in terms of your anti-bullying awareness month. This past year, NISBA board decided that we had to look at giving recognition to school districts across the state that had innovative programs that were doing things different, and in many cases doing things different that could be shared with other boards as well. I don't play any role in selecting what gets recognized for what we call our Champions for Kids award, but I do get the opportunity to come and visit with the boards and give you a thanks for offering a program like this to your children. This is a different world than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. We are able to go in different directions, and it takes a special board, though, to be able to make sure that we're going to do something different, we're going to try something different. So on behalf of NISBA, I want to just present this banner, which you can hang and wherever it's appropriate. And Rick, give this to you and.
Thank you very much. Would you like a picture?
Yes.
Well, let me step.
Sorry. I'm gonna be the press right now. Photo opportunity here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I know it takes board initiative to do anything, it also takes administrative initiative, and, and it sounds like you've also got a lot of initiative too, so this is enjoyable. Getting to see a board like this, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Present to the board, read proclamation recognizing Read Across America, a national celebration of reading.
Talk about Read Across America. We have lots and lots of really cool things happening. Read Across America is a National Education Association's program. It's in its 22nd year, and I've been running Read Across America for some time, in some way, shape, or form in Lake Placid since 2001 when I taught 4th grade. It was originally started as a Dr. Seuss celebration. Dr. Seuss's birthday is March 2nd. But recently, the NEA's license with Dr. Seuss Enterprises has expired, and they've changed their focus. And they're focusing now on promoting more diverse readers. And they're looking at how we can look at diversity in books. So we've had all kinds of challenges in the elementary school around Read Across America. When I taught 4th grade, we had individual challenges, and kids had to read a book from every state in order to complete the challenge, and it was a contest between the 3 classrooms. We've also had some pretty major principal challenges. If the whole school read a certain amount of minutes outside of school, we taped a principal to a wall once. We didn't leave him there. We had to let him down. But anyway, we taped him up there for a while. We shaved Mr. Witkowski's head, beard, and mustache once for 70,000 minutes of outside reading time. That was probably our best one, to be honest. We dyed Mrs. Franklin's hair purple. And then what else did she have to do?
She had to sleep outside all night.
Yeah. Then last year we started talking, and my sidekick and I had some conversations. What do you think Mrs. Franklin ought to do? And what did you say?
We should have 1 hour of extra recess.
We said, forget Mrs. Franklin, we have to have 1 hour of extra recess. And the kids were like, yes! So Mrs. Franklin was very excited to not have to dye her hair, shave her head, or, because I was coming up with all kinds of crazy things. And she was happy about that. So last year our competition was girls versus boys. The girls won. And this year our competition is?
Even versus odd. So K, 2, and 4 versus odd, which is 3 grades 1, 3, and 5.
So it is straight up total reading. I don't have to do any complicated math this year, which is great. It's about 121 kids to 119 kids on either side. So it works out really well for us. The way this works, okay, sidekick, oh, Sean. This is our Read Across America reading log. It goes home with the kids every Friday. They have over the weekend and the entire week to read outside of school. They can read to an animal, they can read to their stuffed animal, they can read to their parents can read to them, they can read to a friend, whatever counts, we don't care. We just want kids reading. And so they keep track of it and add it all up. The challenge is to read for at least 60 minutes a week. If you get the challenge, if you complete the challenge, what happens?
You get a small
Yeah. It takes me a while to count them all up. So then the following Monday, they get a little prize. So I have bookmarks and pencils and erasers, and the kids will do anything, right? Girls, right? For that kind of stuff? It's just way fun. So reading logs are due on Friday. So between now and March 27th, the kids are in a contest. It started yesterday. We kicked it off yesterday with a pretty major assembly. So they'll have a new reading log every week. I sent home a letter to parents explaining what was going on. At the end of our contest, Bruce Coville is coming. If you don't know Bruce Coville, he's a fantastic author. He wrote My Teacher is an Alien. He wrote Hatched. He wrote a variety of other books. The list is, right, Mark? The list, the list is very, very long. He's coming March 31st. We are going to partner with the Bookstore Plus to get some books pre-ordered, and he can sign them for us. And he will announce the winner to the students. So we're pretty excited about that. So it will even be coming from me. The other things we're doing, we're having some special guests come to classrooms. And by special guests, I mean you! Hooray! So if you would like to come and read to any of our students, that would be great. We welcome you at any time during the month of March, except March 20th, when the kids aren't in school. We got other things going on. We are looking for the Rotary Club. We've contacted them. I have contacted the state police. I know a guy. We're looking for you guys, the Lake Placid local police, the fire department, Dr. Catania, anyone else. It's out to the public. If you'd like to come and read to our students, we're happy to have you. You can come read your favorite picture book. You can come and choose a book that we have. One of the dance teachers is coming. I'm requesting she come in a tutu, we'll see. Because I think that it's important that kids see that everyone reads. And how cool is that to walk into a classroom and there's a state trooper there reading a book. So Friday at 2:15 or 1:45 down. We have every Friday we have special events that go on throughout the month. Honestly, because the month of March is very long. It is, don't take this the wrong way, the 1 month without a vacation, and it's just long. So we need to break it up. We've got to give these kids something to look forward to. We all see the light at the end of the tunnel. That is spring break, but it takes a long time to get there. So every Friday we do something really cool. So what are we doing this Friday?
Crazy Hair Day.
Crazy Hair Day. What are we doing next Friday?
Pajama Day.
And we are doing our first Drop Everything and Read. That's the very old program, like I did it when I was in school, where we announce now is deer time, and you will literally, because you're already in your pajamas, drop everything, and the whole school will be reading for 15 minutes. So that will be really cool. And then Thursday, the 19th, because we're not in school on Friday the 20th, is Mismatch Day. So we're going to dress crazy, especially my personal favorite. And then Friday the 27th is
Crazy Hat / Crazy Socks.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. So I have a proclamation for you, Mr. Preston. I believe you have it, I hope. Yes. That we'd love if you could read and sign for all of us, please.
We're actually going to vote on it.
We're gonna, yes, that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Do you want to watch the video?
Yeah. So we did something new this year. Last year, if you check YouTube or follow me on Facebook, I found a cat in the hat at the bookstore. And we did this huge, big kickoff assembly, and I really, really liked it. And so this year we changed it. This is what we did. This is first grade. They really liked it because the kids knew I was coming and they could find themselves on the video.
Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like a
This is fifth grade. We grabbed him in music. So there we go. So that's going to be our new, thank you, that's going to be our new tradition, is that I'm going to go around and video the entire school reading, and then Mr. Leon works his magic. That's not my strength at all.
One more, I have the kindergarten reading
Yeah.
parade.
Then, today, we celebrated our newest readers in the building. We have, this is our new tradition. This, I think, is our third or fourth year. This is our reading parade. So, this is the entire kindergarten, and they all got an Elephant and Piggy book today. I purchased one for everybody. They get to take it home and keep it forever. They choose them. We had a dance. We lined the halls of the school and came down singing, playing the Jackson 5's ABC 1, 2, 3. And we jammed around and then danced in the kindergarten. I don't think the kindergartners could really figure out what was going on. A little nervous. Where are these teachers dancing around? But they got to choose their own book to take home, their hardcovers. Thank you, Mark, for getting those for us. Appreciate it. And they had a little ice cream sundae party. And it's all to celebrate, this is them coming down, this is all to celebrate the fact that they are the newest readers in the building. So we do this right around end of February, beginning of March every year now. Mrs. Paulson had saw the idea online somewhere, and I just kind of ran with it. So this is what we're going to do. So it's been really cool. The kids have really liked it. Was your class the first class to do it? Did you guys do a reading parade, or was that after you?
At all.
Yeah.
I think it was the one after.
That was the one after. Sorry. So, you have the
So the
proclamation.
board's going to read the
Yes.
resolution and then vote on it later in the meeting.
Okay,
And then I'll have to send the original over tomorrow.
okay. And then we just have one more thing to tell you about. So if you didn't know, go show him your shirt. Will is our newest 46er reader. And if you don't know the 46er book challenge, it is, this is his original list from third grade that he started highlighting. The book challenge goes from level O up to K up to V. So the books start out with Paul Bunyan, and in the middle you have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlotte's Web, and at the end you have Wrinkle in Time, Harry Potter, and Dragon Rider. Dragon Rider's an 800-page book. This is a challenge open to all students in the elementary school, starting at the end of second grade. So that's about when the levels start. So Will's the first one this year to complete the challenge. He joins another couple of kids that are in his class, and they'll go on a special fun field trip at the end of the year. We have 3 other kids in the 4th grade that are really close, and a couple of the kids in their 30s. So Wendy Fox keeps track of all of that for us, and we had a new list come out last year. We're trying to stay updated and keep adding new and different things. So that's kind of what happens in reading until the spring, when I purchase all the books and the kids go book shopping. So, any questions?
All right, I just want to say thank you very much for all your efforts in this. We've got an elementary school that is enthusiastic, to say the least, about books and reading from the beginning of the year to the end of the year to the summer, and you have led that charge. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Super fun. So if you have any ideas, let me know. If you want to read the kids, let me know. If you got any books sitting around you want to get rid of, let me know. I take those too. Cool. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
support.
Thank you, yeah, really.
Well, thank you. Next item on our agenda is superintendent's report.
Sure, I'd like to mention a few things tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that we're hearing about in the news, the coronavirus. I'm going to talk a little bit about Advocacy Day in Albany, which was today, and then about upcoming events and activities going on. in the school district. I want to start with the coronavirus issue. Here in the school district, we're aware of concerns in the community about the coronavirus, and I guess I just wanted to let the board know what we're doing to respond to these concerns. We are paying close attention to information that's coming out of the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, and the New York State Department of Health. And, we're paying attention to their recommendations, and we'll be considering those recommendations as we go forward. Just a little context of the 90,000 or so cases that are so far confirmed worldwide. It's a relatively small number that exists in the United States, and an even smaller number, too, at last check at least, are confirmed in New York State, both of those in the New York metropolitan area. So right now, the actions that we're talking about taking are common sense responses that will help not only with our worries about the coronavirus, but also with the more pressing concerns we have right now about flu, because we do have a lot of kids with flu or flu-like symptoms. So there are preventative measures for everyday use that kids, families, and staff members should take right now. And these are things that we've recommended before for other diseases. Stay home when you're sick. Cover coughs and sneezes using, shirt sleeves or the elbow area or a tissue. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. And then practice regular and thorough hand washing with soap and water. Normal kinds of recommendations. And then also use alcohol-based sanitizers. As schools, there are some additional steps that we can take as well. And these include regular cleaning of frequently touched surfaces and objects like tables, doorknobs, toys, desks, and computer keyboards. Maybe a little bit more vigilant than in the past right now. Surfaces, of course, should be cleaned with detergent-based cleaners or EPA-registered disinfectants. We're getting lists from the State Department of Health on that as we speak. And we can also make hand sanitizer readily available throughout all of our facilities. So, we'll be distributing information to staff and families as needed. But given the situation right now, our response or our thought is to make sure that we have a measured and thoughtful response. I think that's the best strategy. And we'll continue to adjust as we move forward and new information comes available. So we'll be tuning in closely. Any questions about that one topic?
Just curious, kind of taking this as an opportunity to, if we ever had an event where, half the student body was out, or a third of it was out, like what would we do as a school?
Sure, and that's come up in other situations as well. We haven't really faced that. Certainly we haven't faced that recently. There are some schools who face it on occasion, especially with the flu. And there have been schools who have closed their doors for a day because not being able to staff. So it wasn't just students, it was also staff members. But yeah, the guidance that's coming out of the Department of Health, it ranges from the kinds of things, very common sense things that I'm sharing with you today, all the way up to the most extreme situations that are perhaps being practiced in places right now, like China and Japan, where this is a much more evident situation. So yeah, those recommendations are out there, but that's really not what we're looking at right now. What we're looking at right now is just
wash your hands.
Yeah, common sense things. Anything else about the
No, thank you.
Today was also Advocacy Day in Albany, and this is that month, the month of March, as the legislature gets ready to work on the budget. So today was a day for advocacy in support of public education. The most pressing topic right now, of course, is the state budget, and I had a chance to, while I was there, to discuss the state budget and advocate for support. We're hoping for an increase over the relatively flat aid allocation that we received from the executive budget back in January. And we're also looking for a rejection of the governor's recommendation to consolidate BOCES and other reimbursement aids into foundation aid. We see that as being problematic down the road. So, and it does seem like from the people I heard from today that they would agree that is not a good idea for schools. In addition, we're hoping for an increase in the capital outlay limit, and this is when you, instead of large construction projects, you can do small ones at $100,000 per year right now. That's the maximum. We're hoping to see an increase up to perhaps $250,000, so that, instead of waiting until waiting 15 years and then doing what we've just done, which is put together a large infrastructure project for a considerable amount of money, to be able to tackle small pieces of that project along the way is what we're hoping for. So that's on the list of items that we're hoping to see change. And then there are a number of other items, and we'll see where some of that goes. So all of this will probably transpire over the next month. One staffer I spoke to thought we would see a similar increase to last year, which was pretty modest, but also an on-time budget, which she thinks is pretty sure to happen. So over the next month, we'll expect to see the legislature and the executive get together and negotiate the budget. We think that'll pick up speed and intensity as we get closer to the end of March. And then, cross your fingers, hopefully we'll have some final answers by the end of the month in time for the board to pass the school district budget. That's my feedback on Advocacy Day in Albany. As far as upcoming events and activities, a lot of things going on in the school, and you can see the kind of energy that we have just in this room alone. There's just a lot going on all the time. But I'll mention what's coming up in the next week or two. Tomorrow, our middle school music program is going to be traveling to Albany. So we're sending 2 buses probably. Is it 2? Or we have 1 or 2 buses going down there?
No, I don't know.
We usually have a large group going to Albany. They're going to be performing in the state capitol. This is an annual event, and we're just glad that we can continue to make this happen. In addition, the students are going to be going to the New York State Museum and then going to lunch before returning home, hopefully around 6 p.m. This has been a highlight for our students and their experience. I was talking to a fellow superintendent today who said he remembers what a highlight it was for him when he was in school. And that's the kind of experience we're helping our students have now for down the road. So very exciting things. Thanks to Emily Kukovka and Taylor Prosper for organizing this trip. At Lake Placid Elementary School, we've also got some music events going on. There's going to be a woodwind quintet from the Eastman School of Music. They're going to be performing an assembly, but also offering a lunch and learn opportunity next Monday. So our children have an opportunity to interact closely with musicians as they enjoy the music, but also see it up close and talk to really high level musicians. So these are a part of Music in Our Lives Month, and that's making sure that music is a vital part of every student's total education. Back at the high school, tomorrow there's a blood drive that's sponsored by our Key Club, and then tomorrow night's the Winter Sports Recognition Ceremony. Tonight, of course, is the sectional championship game. That's the SLP boys hockey game, and cross your fingers. Hopefully, the season will continue beyond tomorrow, but they are going to celebrate the end of the winter sports season for the rest of the teams tomorrow night. Also, our high school students will have an opportunity to participate in a number of college and career planning activities in the coming weeks, and this is exciting because we do a lot of things every year that are the same, but then we shift things around. There are some changes this year which are exciting. For one thing, we're bringing back the ASVAB, so this is the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. It's basically a career exploration exam. We had put that on hold for a few years. That's back. This is one of those opportunities for kids, not just to look at college, but to look at what kinds of careers are out there for them. And the ASVAB is one of the best of those. So that's available to students this Thursday. And then on Thursday the 19th, we have something new. This is our first annual Lake Placid High School Career Expo. So it's a career fair going on here later on in the month. This is going to be held in the middle school, high school library from 10 to 12:30. And it's going to feature an array of job and career opportunities for our students to explore. So Many thanks again to the people who organized this. These events don't just happen. They require people to inject a lot of time and energy. And so many thanks to Sarah Allen, Connie Hammaker, and Amy Gotham for putting this event together. And then one more that is a continuation from the past year. This will be the second time, I believe. This is our SAT School Day, right? So you might remember that this was an idea that the Board of Ed got behind a couple of years ago and was willing to put in the budget a small amount to cover the cost for the SATs being administered during the week, during the school day, to all high school juniors, no cost to the juniors, all of that being paid by the school district. So that's coming up, March 25th, and that means our juniors once again all have a chance to take this important exam that is really needed or often a part of the college planning process. So thanks again to the board for getting that ball rolling a couple of years. Finally, the end of next week, talking about exciting things, we've got 2 exciting STEM events. And this is the robotics competition and the Science Olympiad state competition. Science Olympiad students qualified for the first time in a few years with a second place as the high school team finished second place in the region. And that means they got invited to go to Syracuse for the state competition. That is coming up. Turns out it's coming up on the same weekend that the robotics competition is. You might remember the robotics competition. We've been fortunate enough to have the robots show up and do a board presentation the last couple of years, and maybe we'll get that again this year. But the robotics competition is also coming up. I know they're looking to build on last year's second place finish. So best of luck to all of those groups, all those students, and all of the adults that are behind that. And I'll say especially thanks to Frank Brunner, who has spearheaded our Science Olympiad program ever since he came here. Brian LaValle and Olaf Carlson, who were tremendous supporters of the robotics competition. And as well as other teachers and volunteers who bring science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, alive for our students. Some exciting things coming up. And that's everything. Any questions, comments?
Probably not everything, but the highlights.
Those are some highlights.
Any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Next up is information for the board. There are 5 items on the agenda, 2 in the public, 3 in the executive content. In the public section is the nomination procedures for the BOCES Board of Education. As is put here, we do not have a seat. My term ends next year, and I say that because anybody who would like to run for that position, I'll be right behind you for that, so think about that. Otherwise, we will just be voting on Salmon River, Chateauguay, and the Tucker Lake vacancies for those people that are up for re-election in April. So. And then the claims audit is there for your viewing pleasure. Any comments or questions on the rest of the items?
Oh, this is an executive content.
You know, I just wanted to add, because the Rose Heisen research project is an executive content, and it probably doesn't need to be. A lot of this information is shared with parents and students. And I guess I just wanted you to know that that project has been moving forward. And it was something that came up back in the summer or fall. You know, we all expressed our support for Rose Heisen doing her doctoral research here on a topic that we're very interested to learn more about. And that is how student identity and student bullying experiences shape their school experiences, and how that's reflected both here in Lake Placid, but also in a wider sense how that's connected to a broader experience for young people. So Rose's research is well underway, and I wanted you to know about that.
Is she finding any speed bumps or unexpected obstacles?
Well, always the challenge with this kind of research is to get people to sign on the dotted line to say, yes, I agree, it's okay with me for my child, and for the students to say, yes, I agree to do this as part of the research. But I think once they do, they realize that the kids get as much out of this as the researcher does. So it's hard work, but I know Rose is working on it, and I'm sure she already has some students that have met that approval level. I know I've seen her sharing photographs and things with students, so I know it's moving ahead. I'm not sure how much participation she's getting, but if she doesn't have it yet, she's still working on it, what she's got to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question on the composter, on the memorandum of understanding.
Yes, and that is later, I think, isn't it?
That'll be coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's in the discussion section.
Okay.
Great.
And we put that back under the discussion.
Okay.
So, great. If nothing else, linking goals with agenda items. There's several. Students first and foremost, the SAT day, #1, the trip to Albany, Laura and Will's presentation on reading, lacrosse, of course, and the NISBA award, the ones that I jotted down quickly in Jeff's absence.
And he said he'd bring me his list.
Okay, good. Anybody else have anything? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the capital project. You have attached the status summary from February 18th. Any updates that Dana, you or Roger want to share?
They started pouring the second part of the footers for the retaining wall in the walkway. They were doing that today, so that's progressing nicely. They're talking about right now the plan is still to start working on the auditorium April 1st. Paul approached me today about possibly looking at starting the vestibule here April 1st as well. That way it doesn't get tied up, because there's only certain things they can do for the auditorium, and they don't want to have some downtime. So he threw that out as a possibility so that Bass Hatfield can be kept busy and keep us on track to hopefully be done by the end of September.
Just a quick look here. Just on the asbestos. Are we finally done with that?
Done with asbestos?
I know, right? That's why I literally bring it up every time.
It's once they get into the auditorium, there's always an
Okay.
unknown. I would say the vast majority of it is done over winter break. They did some other spots in terms of for the heating portion of the project, but until they open up this wall here in the auditorium, I mean, they've done testing, but you really don't know until you actually open the wall up as to what's there. So I would say, hopefully yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right.
Any other questions on the capital project? There are no change orders for us to view or discuss. So we'll move right on to discussion. The first item is why you are all here this evening. At our February 18th meeting, John was here and presented to the board regarding the addition of modified lacrosse. You have a couple of attachments, one from Jennifer Webb and the other from our athletic director, John Burdick. Mr. Burdick articulates some of the concerns and challenges that John brought up either last meeting or tonight. Tonight we'll discuss the item and get some opinions and see where we go from here.
Can we just give a little background?
Please.
Because, 2 years ago, we didn't have a lacrosse team at all here. And some of our kids traveled to Saranac Lake on their own to play, whether it was girls or boys, whether it was varsity or modified. So last year, you know, after much discussion, we decided to jump into an SLP arrangement with the varsity. It would have been, in an ideal world, it would have been terrific to do an SLP arrangement with both the varsity and the modified. The SLP arrangement meant that both the girls and the boys varsity teams were shared by us and by Saranac Lake. We had not shared those teams before. We had not provided busing, we had not provided field supervision, coaching, etc. So last year, for the first time, we expanded into the varsity programs. And I would say that there were some benefits and there were some challenges to that. The benefits were that I think we had vibrant varsity programs, and that for Lake Placid kids, they were now able to get transportation, because part of overseeing a program is providing transportation and facilities for practices and games, right? So they were able to get transportation. You know, we committed to transportation for both those teams, shared it with Saranac Lake. Facilities, there's really two sets of facilities in the spring. The first half of the spring season is kind of an indoor season for many teams because, because of the weather, right? And so typically we're talking about March of the spring season, sometimes into April, depending on where our break is mostly indoor practices. And then it's usually after spring break when we're able to get outside. For lacrosse, we did have some bumps in the road last year. One is we were maxed out in terms of transportation. We were transporting our teams, all of our teams, including the lacrosse team. And while that's going on, we've also been facing a driver shortage. And so we experienced that last year. That was a pretty significant deal. We did have to, cancel or postpone some things along the way. Not necessarily always lacrosse, because as lacrosse got put into the mix, other programs also had to, sometimes we weren't able to handle that, everything that we had on our plate. In terms of facilities, we ran into some problems with the fields, because we were counting on the town fields being in good shape. The town fields were not in good shape, at least not for the time when we needed them. They needed to have been taken care of in the fall in order to be ready in the spring, and they weren't. So we ended up sending a lot of our, instead of playing a lot of our games here, we ended up playing a lot of our games in Saranac Lake, which kind of added to the challenges of doing it. So we didn't go SLP, varsity, and modified for those 2 years. We maintained the SLP. We jumped into the SLP. Saranac Lake picked up a boys modified. The girls modified team, that's all everybody's pointed out, there was no girls modified team. Middle school girls played on the varsity when they could. And that's where we were. In terms of where we are this year, the challenges haven't changed, and so the expansion, and this is just the resource piece of it, because I think the enthusiasm is all there, and I think we know that, and it's wonderful to hear from the Saranac. It's mostly the Saranac Lake crew, although Nora's here, so thanks Nora for being here. So there are really 4 possibilities the way I see it this year. One would be the ideal possibility, which we really haven't been talking about, which would probably be the most challenging for us in terms of resources, would be the SLP modified program. Do boys and girls modified SLP. That would be ideal. Let's face it, that would be the perfect solution. The next solution would be for either, I guess there's really 2 possibilities, either for Lake Placid, which is why our Saranac Lake friends are here today, for Lake Placid to pick up the girls modified and to leave the boys modified in Saranac Lake. That would be one possibility. Still, we have the resource challenges there. The other possibility for Saranac Lake to pick up the girls modified along with the boys modified. In other words, for them to house both modified teams, just as they've done in the past with boys. And then the other possibility is for neither school to pick up the modified. And that's kind of where it stands right now. I don't know what Saranac Lake's going to do. I think they have a meeting. You're probably scheduled to go there, right?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So that's also, so I don't know what Saranac Lake will do. And so that's kind of where I see the lay of the land.
What are the challenges if If Lake Placid picks up, we still have to transport to the town fields.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have a connected campus, right? So every practice that we have is on the fields, either on the horse show ground fields or the town fields. So yes, absolutely, we would have to transport for practice as well as games. But the other challenge is probably more significant. It's the early season challenge. We have one gymnasium, and every team that competes in the spring wants to use it, including baseball, softball, and there's 2 or 3 different teams for each of those trying to do that. And golf team, and tennis team, we have a lot of teams. And so it's also the indoor facility in that pre-competition stage that's challenging. And then, of course, the transportation to events, to games.
And those that don't know this, we used to utilize the Olympic Training Center, which is no longer an option for us. They're now sealed up. Questions, discussion?
What's the cost? If you're gonna pay for the coach?
So
If you were to-
I'll
if
mention
you-
a couple of things, and
Yeah,
I'll let
the
our
option
business
one-
manager weigh
what-
in.
Yeah,
after he's
yeah,
given
the
some
option
thought.
one, we
Yeah,
have,
so
we have a
the
team.
cost, the financial cost is essentially the cost of a coach, and then the usual costs associated with competitions like referees and those kinds of things. That's a dollars and cents cost. That's one piece, and I'll let Dana comment on that. The other, I'm going to call it a resource challenge, would also be attached with costs if we could do it, right? And that's the transportation piece, right? So part of the transportation is, yes, you have to pay for drivers, additional drivers to do this work. If it was just a money issue, that'd be one challenge. It's also do we even have the drivers challenge? And you've been hearing me talk all year long about the challenge we've had with drivers, and we do have a significant shortage. We're about to lose Paul Lewis to retirement at the end of this month, and so we dropped down one more. And so that's when I say resource, I'm not just talking about dollars and cents. I'm talking about actually having people who can drive. So do you have any comments about the cost of putting together a team?
First year, because you need the startup costs when it comes to uniforms, and we experienced this with SLP, hockey and lacrosse. We could have purchased Lake Placid uniforms just 2 years ago for boys hockey, and this year we had to turn around and buy all new stuff for SLP. So you got to look at the cost of new uniforms, whether it's Lake Placid or SLP. That's probably in that I would say $2,000 to $4,000 range. A coach is in that $4,000 range as well, plus materials, which is nominal, and then officials.
And is there any economies of scale having it at Saranac Lake? So we just, there already is the varsity team, girls team. They just use their bus. They just go to the. You understand.
So one of the reasons why we didn't go to SLP, both varsity and modified, because I was involved in these conversations, was that the programs themselves could not connect the two at the same time. And so we knew we had to set that. What we ideally wanted to do was we wanted to say, yes, let's do it for girls and boys. Both schools, when we're transporting, we'll transport them all. We'll have them at the same general location, that kind of thing. But that, the athletic directors and the coaches could not tell us that they could do that. In other words, they said they did not expect that that's how it would happen. And that's why it became this additional piece that at the time we said, let's just tackle the one right now. And that's, that was it. It's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. It's the day in, day out practice experience, the timing, and the fields that they were talking about. And this came out of the conversations with all of our, this actually started when Don Moody was athletic director. And so it started with her as athletic director, through conversations, and Eric Bennett, as well as some of the rest of us. Yeah.
Refresh my memory a little bit. If we have, like with varsity lacrosse, when it first started, or football,
You remember when football first started?
yes.
Just checking.
Leather helmets, the full thing. We were not, our students were playing on the Saranac Lake team. And we have that same reciprocity, so to speak, with other sports.
Yeah.
But we were not responsible for transportation, correct?
Correct.
Which doesn't sit well because of the students first and foremost and equality across
Correct.
across the
Why we went
continuum.
SLP in the first place, yeah.
Right, so once we're SLP, which is a combined team, now we are responsible for transportation.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to figure out a way that, and I certainly appreciate the dollars and cents, but I don't think you can put a dollar and cents value on our students, our Saranac Lake students. So more of it is, we just don't have the buses.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem when you don't have the buses is that there's this whole ripple effect of things you have to cancel. So for example, we're not canceling tomorrow's trip, at least that's not our goal, but if, for example, we had two drivers call in sick tomorrow morning, we might in fact have to cancel the trip to Albany, right? Because without backup drivers, which is where we are right now, you have to get kids to and from school, and those buses will be gone for longer than that. So we run into that more now. Do you want to do you have an estimate about how often we run into that? Because you get that more than I do.
Well, we're just finishing up the winter sports season and just focusing on sports and the sports shuttles with, all of them. It was a struggle on a daily basis. There were many days where every available driver was being used. And there were some cases where Saranac Lake would pick up our students and we would pick up their students, because it's not just a Lake Placid issue. Right now, the thought is the spring is going to be even worse than the winter season, because we have to transport all of our kids to the various fields. At least during the winter time, basketball is here, and we just set it up. We worry about the Wilmington shuttles at nights, but once the spring sports gets outdoors, we have teams going to the elementary school, to the horse show grounds, to Craigwood, and then lacrosse, where we're transporting kids like with hockey, over and back. So that's on a daily basis, not to mention our normal runs. Practices begin around 3 o'clock, and that is the time that we're doing all of our bus runs for both buildings. As Roger mentioned, we have a person retiring, hopefully have a person that will take her place. We have advertised, we have received an applicant. So we're not even gaining a driver in that case. With someone that has just gotten their license and has been driving now for the last couple of weeks. Basically, we're going to be maintaining.
We are paying for training too. So people out there who you might know that might be interested in a part-time job and want to learn from the ground up. We pay people when they start training, but it takes a few months.
So I think it's safe to say that we have consensus, well, I won't say consensus, but I think most of us are behind the concept of a girls modified team. It's just working out the details of transportation, field usage, and I'm not sure if Saranac Lake has any answers to these complex problems or not, but I guess tomorrow night we'll find out. communication between the two boards or the two superintendents and see what
I'll certainly be checking in on Thursday to see.
Sure. Any last minute?
So, just guys are on
Yep.
busing, transportation being the
That's
foremost obstacle.
That is,
Can't have parents who have the no volunteer bus driver, huh?
We'll pay to train.
do you have somebody in mind?
Find me a substitute on it.
So,
Sure.
if I may, yeah,
Please.
and that was just one, I think I tried to touch on that a little bit last meeting, was that, you know, obviously how strongly we feel about having a team, and that, you know, I think parents are willing to help out with transportation. You know, whether it's a portion of that, the pickup, or not. You know, like I said, we're already driving our kids from Saranac Lake to Lake Placid for Tri-Lakes. We've been doing that for years, so, and obviously we can carpool and that sort of thing. So if there's any way, yeah, for us to be creative and figure this obstacle, I would urge that to happen. And yeah, obviously I'm not aware of the conversations with the athletic directors and the coaches as far as having the teams kind of coexist at the same spot. But certainly I would be kind of interested to hear the feedback on that. If there's maybe a fresh look could be taken at that as well, because as you point out, the economies of scale there seem like that would be great if we could make that work too. I know Tri-Lakes, since we used to practice in the Olympic Training Center as well, the last 2 years we've been in the Saranac Lake Civic Center. So, you know, maybe there's an option there. And that's worked out, you know, well for us. Certainly there's a space there. So any outside the box thinking.
Do you have any idea on numbers from Lake Placid modified? Just approximation.
Of the third, it was about 1/3 Lake Placid, 2/3 Saranac Lake.
Of the 31?
Yes.
Okay.
The number I have is this is just signups, because
Right.
as you pointed out, if they don't think we have a modified team, there might be
Right.
kids signing up, right? But the number we have right now is 3. That's what we have. We have 3 kids who have signed up for the modified girls team. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Do they ever melt the rink over here, the 32 rink?
Yeah,
in the
for a very
spring?
short time.
In May, is that?
But it wouldn't be available for our spring sports at all, would it?
Especially this year with all
Next
that.
couple of years.
Yes, the road's getting shut down.
Right. We can play in the road. It'll be
That's
fun.
right.
Any other questions, comments? I think we'll wait moving forward, we'll wait to hear from Saranac Lake, and certainly would like to make this happen. We need to move pretty quickly here. If we're talking about the spring, so.
One question, just so I'm aware. Obviously, they'll meet tomorrow, and then the season is starting. Is that something that could potentially move forward without you all having another board meeting, or how could that work?
We'd have to vote on that.
Okay.
So, is it March 17th? Or March 17th board meeting? We'll definitely have that on the agenda, just as a recap or a voting, an action item.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. If there's nothing further on that item, the next item up on the discussion is the memorandum of understanding between ADK Action and the Lake Placid Central School District. The memorandum of understanding was included in the February 18th meeting. Under the information for the board, this came up. We're going to vote on it, and I think there's some questions. I know there's some questions out there regarding this memorandum of understanding. This has to do with the composter, for those of you who didn't take the opportunity to read the memorandum. But I've asked Roger to, thank you,
Thanks, guys.
to seek, you guys wanna, please.
Yeah, still got some homework and.
Oh, yeah, no,
Thank
totally
you.
understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I had some questions regarding legal questions, so asked if our council could review the understanding. But Roger, you want to give a brief background on this?
So, yeah, the brief background is that, you know, this was part of the plan that the Environmental Club started developing a while ago, and they've come to the board a few times to present their ideas. The composter was part of this, but they really wanted to expand it and to make it a sustainable operation. So in order to do that, they needed a partner. And 80K Action became a part of this plan. So 80K Action is a nonprofit group. Provided you a link to their information and some of what they do. The partner was so that they could operate more on a small business model and allow for continuation of the process of composting throughout the year, not just during the school year, not just when it fit into classes or clubs. Right now it's fitting in very nicely to the school year. There's a lot of activity going on with more than one group, especially some special ed classrooms as well as the environmental club itself. But in terms of the summer and vacations and all of that, the idea was to turn this more into a business model and then to be able to pay employees during those times so that this could be a self-sustaining operation. So they've been working with, the environmental club's been working with 80K Action. They've incorporated the ideas of some graduates who were working on this back when they were in high school and are now in college. To put together this idea and try and bring it to fruition. So the MOU, I think I summarized in some of the background notes. The MOU essentially outlines who's involved, and the different areas of agreement. And one of the things it includes, and I think I tried to spell this out. One of the things it includes is that while we would maintain ownership, the district would maintain ownership of the composter itself, that they would charge us a monthly fee as they would charge any other group. That was a part of it. And then there's an insurance piece in which they would ask that we insure it. So really the question I think that is before the board is, whether or not this MOU, which includes a school district contributing a monthly fee of that. I believe it was something like $60 when the presentation was made a month, and the insurance, the annual cost of insurance, is worth what I guess the way I outlined it is the educational benefit of having this program in place. And I think their presentation, and we gave you a copy of one of their documents, but you've heard them speak before here. Is, again, to try and create a self-sustaining operation, is to make sure that they are collecting fees from all their customers, and they see us as a customer. So that's really, I think, why we brought this to discussion, rather than just move it into a board resolution, was whether or not board members are happy and comfortable with that, or if we need to revamp this.
Do we see a savings, Dana, in dump fees, tipping fees?
It's hard to tell because this MOU does not specifically spell out what they're going to charge us.
Yeah, it's thought 10 cents.
I looked
Somewhere,
at
I
the
couldn't find
MOU,
it.
there's nothing in
No,
the
it's not in the
MOU.
MOU.
Yeah,
Right, so,
that's what strikes, that's what comes out, I'm looking here for the money, and I'm not seeing anything other than the flow chart that has money leaving our district.
right.
And I'm not seeing, it seems strange that why we would pay twice.
Yeah, I think some of this goes back to the presentation that they made where they provided us with some of these numbers. We need to go back. Do you know where that is?
But
It's a few meetings ago.
yeah, and it just seems like it should be in a memorandum of understanding.
Do you see a savings now? I mean, without them charging us, because they are taking the food waste over there now?
I haven't, I mean, we don't typically see, you know, we have a bill from the town. We opened it up in July, we closed it in June. We pay basically a set fee, you know, like a monthly fee each month. So it's hard to, you know, to break it out. They don't necessarily show us, you know. If Bobby was to go to the dump and bring it, he would probably get a receipt to see what that is. So it is hard because what we send to the dump, Casellas picks up. You know, they do all the recyclables and all that. It doesn't even go to, recyclables don't go here. They go to Zero Sort in Vermont. So it's the only stuff that goes locally would be, you know, the garbage. It's hard to pull it out. But as I pointed out with that is the MOU does not specify, you know, what they're going to charge us, the rates. They speculate based on what they basically said is here's what they do weigh it. So anytime they bring it to the composter, they do weigh how much is being dropped there, and they say based on this weight, this is what it would probably be charged at the landfill.
10 cents a pound came to mind.
There it is. Here. So these are their numbers. So we, you know, as Dan pointed out, we don't break down these kinds of costs and I guess numbers based on pounds. But so they did all this. This was their research. So 2,405 pounds of food waste that were not their number is what that we're not diverting to the landfill, and they are translating that average pounds per month to landfill costs of $60.14. That's where that $60 came from. It was their calculation. Is that it?
Did we get an estimate on what insurance might?
Yeah.
Well, the insurance, it
It's
kind
all
of rolls,
inclusive.
right, it falls right in under our policy because it's on our property. It just becomes part of it, and we just, you know, make sure that Gordon Pratt's has it, but that is our property, so it automatically, once it's on our property, it becomes part of the policy. So there really probably isn't any real monetary difference on the cost of the insurance because we're paying for everything.
And the only, I guess, comment I have about putting pricing in, this is an MOU between the school district and, what is it? ADK Action, who takes no financial responsibility for anything, correct? They're the not-for-profit entity that's representing.
Sounds like they're more of like an administrator.
Correct. And
Right.
they're allowing, you know, the not-for-profit status of this project.
So there are some limits in this MOU about, I'm trying to find it. Any funds raised or dispersed must be documented and clearly integral to the operation and management of the drum composter project and in line with the goal to reduce food waste and create usable compost. It's not specific, obviously. Funds may be used for publicity and management expenses. You know, so on that nonprofit type of principle.
So do we need a memorandum of understanding with the composting? What are they calling themselves?
Placid Earth.
Placid Earth.
So the Placid Earth is ours. It's our school group's name that they're the branch of like Placid Central School District that is working closely with Adirondack ADK Action.
not trying to complicate it, I just don't want to see us getting into a situation where it's 10 cents this month, and then 25 the next month, and then 50 next year.
So, right, so their last slideshow, it said they were looking to include $60 a month
Right.
in next year's budget for organics recycling.
So, your option, I think, would be to approve it as is and hope it works out. It could be to send it back to ADK Action and say, we want more specifics. I don't know if you're comfortable with being charged at all. But, again, they're trying to show a trade-off here. Or, as a possibility, something we've done in the past, as part of your board resolution, perhaps to approve contingent upon, this maintaining of a fee of no more than, the estimated $60 a month, which I guess would be another way to go, so that the board was making a statement that, would be implicit in this particular agreement.
Just gotta give you, I just pulled up our landfill fees, again, it doesn't break it down, but for since the start of the year, we're anywhere from $600 to as high as $1,100, and that was for the month of September. And everything in between. It is interesting that June was almost $1,000. That must have come in July and we paid it. But if you're looking at school months, $1,100 for September. Looks like $900 for October, $600 for November, $882 for December, $613 for January.
Now,
Again,
all those months we've been composting, so you
Right.
almost have to go back
Right.
to the previous year and compare those months with this year's, with 2019 months, really, in order to get any kind of estimate.
Right.
Of course, there's a lot of other factors that can come into play here.
So what is,
well, I'll give you September, a previous year was $748, it was $1,100 this year. October was $547, a little higher, November was $700. So if you do the quick, like you said, just a quick analysis, in fact, it looks like a year ago was cheaper in terms of what went, but not knowing what was in the landfill.
Right.
The compost could be out, but we could have been throwing away other heavy material stuff. So it's hard to really know because of that.
so, Liam, while you were out, Roger suggested perhaps in the resolution of accepting this, if everybody's comfortable accepting, is putting in our contingencies, such as the ceiling will be X amount per pound, per month, or what have you. I'm not sure if that, or should we, I just think if we send this back to ADK Action, they're going to say, we don't have any, we're just trying to get an agreement between you, the central school, and ADK Action on behalf
Of ourselves.
so that the group can use our not-for-profit status. So any pricing and any business matters are between
And that's
those
the piece,
two
I
entities.
think, that
And
us and us.
I've been calling the educational component, right? Because I'm gonna give them a lot of credit for integrating some pieces here that I was a little skeptical that they could get done. And that's the business piece. I knew they could get the composting piece done because this is a dynamite group that really cares about this stuff. And as soon as that composter grant was available, this was gonna happen. But that business piece, I just wasn't so sure. But they did persevere on this. And that's where they are trying to operate like a self-sustaining business, even though students can't be a business, at least not here. Maybe at Stanford they can, but they can't be here. And so so this partnership with ADK Action, allowed that to happen, but they do, I agree with you. ADK Action doesn't want to really be doing much here except giving them the protection of the actual independent organization, so they can operate as a business, but they really do want Placid Earth to be doing the work so that the kids are kind of running an entrepreneurial operation.
So,
It's always, it's always just comes down to that money piece and like not knowing and what are we signing up for.
Now, has anything brought up, because July and August, we don't have any food waste. Are we going to be charged for a monthly subscription for July and August when we're
I
not?
don't know that, it's a really good question, but they are operating in, because they want to be working with other organizations too, right? They're trying to bring in other groups that do operate in the summer. I would think especially if the restaurants get on board, that would be really important. But I don't know. Maybe you could put that one in there too.
Contingencies.
or having an understanding with Placid Earth. But again, as Liam pointed out, it's an agreement with ourselves, essentially. Suggestions on moving forward with this?
So what we could do is we could just put this up on the next board agenda as a, as something for you to vote, a resolution for you to vote on. You'd be asked to vote yea or nay. You could have the option there. We could certainly write the resolution to include some specifics. But if you're not comfortable with voting on it, that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with voting on it, then we just need some kind of direction about where you'd like us to take it.
I don't think I'm comfortable voting on it just because of the. I just really know the actually what are we agreeing to pay per month? Because this is going to be it forever, essentially. This is a commitment we're taking on in perpetuity.
So you wouldn't feel comfortable putting in the board resolution, the board agrees to pay no more than, I don't know.
Yeah, that would, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you would be okay with this if the board resolution had a specific number in it?
Correct.
Because that we can write a resolution for the vote to do that. But if that alone isn't something people are comfortable with, then we need to go and do more than that.
But if we do that, is ADK and Placid Earth gonna be okay with that? That, we set a ceiling that we're only gonna pay this, but then they're gonna go out and charge others more.
True. Could happen, I suppose. I would also think it would open the door to Placid Earth having to come in and talk to the board about raising their rates whenever that comes up. So to be able to make a case for why they want to charge us $70 instead of $60, because the board could approve that also down the road. But if it were, if the board had only agreed to pay $60, then it wouldn't change unless the board agreed to change it to pay more.
And I'd want both a price, $60, let's say, and then to be renewed each year. I just don't like this idea of getting sucked into in perpetuity with this project.
Annual renewal.
Annual renewal. Subject to, so up no more than X amount of dollars and subject to yearly renewal.
And when do you do that yearly renewal? Just timing wise, so when we start talking about the budget, we have a idea, when should they come to us? The first of the year or end of the school year? What would be a timing?
Right now. I mean, in reality, if you're looking at $60, you're looking at what, $720 a year for this, if it was built around $60. That probably is not going to break the budget.
I'm only looking at 10 months too.
And one way you could look at it in terms of the trade-offs, you brought up the question, Dan, about, well, if other businesses are being charged something differently, the fallback is, it's on school property, it's school insurance,
Yeah, we're
therefore,
insuring.
there's other costs that we are incurring as a result of this, therefore, we should have a different rate.
Right.
Yeah.
And $600 for education is not a lot. But I, that was my first thought is, you know,
It's
we,
times
right.
infinity, you know?
And again, we talk about, you know, 10, 15 years down the line when another board is here, what did these guys do?
Yeah.
We're paying $5 a pound for garbage.
I hope we were at the point where a $600 bill is going to break the budget.
Yeah. So is everybody comfortable with that if we came up with a,
So we could write a resolution that has those three components added to it, if you're all comfortable with that. It would be a firm amount, it would be 10 months, and it would be annual renewal.
on or before March 1st or something like that, so that if they're looking at increasing, you know, $10 a pound, so $700, then we know it for the budget.
Why don't you make it as of April 1st, since like this, you're not gonna approve this for March 1st, it's already
Sure.
passed, so.
Right. So,
And that's good, because what you're gonna get too is, you're gonna get a year's worth of data, because they weigh the buckets every day, and they could tell us in a year, here's how much we have brought to the composter, and have a more concrete number. So they're not just throwing out a dollar amount, we can say it was 800 pounds.
Sure.
And 10 cents a pound, this is why, so it's, yeah.
Good, anything else? Good discussion, thank you. Next up is the minutes, that's under consent agenda, so moving right on to the personnel items. Excuse me, let me get there. CSEA staff retirement, the recommended action upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of Royce Lawrence, custodian at the elementary school, effective September 8th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Joan. Second?
Second.
Discussion on this matter?
You know, the board approved Mr. Lawrence's extended sick leave because of his health problems a few months ago. So I know that this is no surprise. But it is a big step. Mr. Lawrence has been with the district for a long time. He's been the night custodian, which means that while he's alone for about half that time, for the first half of that time, he's there with kids at the end of the day, he's there with the after-school program, he's there, you know, with the groups, the teams that try and practice in the elementary school gym. I mean, he's there, and he's a welcome presence. He's just a really good person, does a nice job, and the kids have already celebrated him. They had signs up, and they all said goodbye and thank you and all of that, so that's the most important thing. But I guess just for my own, you know, position, I just would like to say thank you to Royce Lawrence for all he's given to the school district.
Yes, thank you. 4-0, the motion passes. Next item up is management confidential resignation upon the recommendation. Recommended action is upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the resignation of Sean Davis, food service director and wellness coordinator, effective March 25th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Joan. Discussion. Your write-up was very thorough. Thank you. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I'll be sorry to see Mr. Davis go. He's the first and only food service director we've ever had, and he tackled a challenging job. And, our food service continues to be challenging, so I wish him well.
Passes. Additional action item, Read Across America proclamation. Recommended action, approve the NEA's Read Across America proclamation for March 2020 as per the attached. As per the attached was in your packet, if you'd like to read that. Any questions, comments on the proclamation? May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Would you like to read it?
You're supposed to read.
Mr. Preston, Dr. Preston, we did promise Mrs. Coffin that you would read
Okay.
it.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Whereas the school board of Lake Placid Central Schools stand firmly committed to promoting reading as the catalyst for our students' future academic success, their preparations for American jobs in the future, and their ability to compete in a global economy. And whereas the Lake Placid Central Schools has provided significant leadership in the area of community involvement in the education of our youth, grounded in the principle that educational investment is key to the community's well-being and long-term quality of life. And whereas NEA's Read Across America, a national celebration of reading in March 2020, promotes reading and adult involvement in the education of our community students. Therefore, be it resolved that the school board of Lake Placid Central Schools calls on the citizens of Lake Placid and Wilmington to ensure that every child is in a safe place reading together with a caring adult every day. And be it further resolved that this body enthusiastically endorses NEA's Read Across America and recommits our community to engage in programs and activities to make America's children the best readers in the world. Dated the 3rd day of March, 2020. That was the right thing to do, and I thank you.
You did a beautiful job.
That's 4-0, the motion passes. Next up is a bus lease proposition resolution. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the following proposition to be added to the ballot of the May 19, 2020 budget vote. Resolved, shall the trustees of Lake Placid Central School District be authorized to lease 2 66-passenger school buses for a period not to exceed 5 years at a cost not to exceed $39,000 per year. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. And a second.
Yes.
Dan. Discussion?
Do we have drivers to drive the buses?
Yeah, really, that's what I'm thinking. We can pay for the buses,
That
we
is
just
a very
can't
good
drive
question.
them.
That's right. At this point, we have more buses than we have drivers. But.
Are we retiring? a couple?
Yes, yeah, we have 2 that are coming up, so they'll get returned, and these will replace them. They're, going with the gas, as, like we did this past year.
If we have every one of our permanent drivers, every substitute, our mechanic, our head bus driver, our secretary, and our 2 custodian drivers driving, then we have a driver for every bus.
Right, yeah.
But only if everybody is on board and nobody's doing anything else but driving buses. So that's where
When
we
we
are.
hire the new custodian, can he be a bus driver too?
We would like to do that, yes.
That's far. Finding that combination is proving
Yeah.
tricky.
We could certainly entertain the idea of any new hires. 4 yes, 0 no's. Passes. Next is special education, which is consent unless there are questions for the March 17th, 2020 packet. And if not, we'll go to the second good of the cause. This gives audience members a second chance to participate, having been through the agenda, if there are questions, comments. Anybody want to speak?
May I violate protocol for a second and
Oh.
just introduce who our two remaining guests are? So we have Jillian Robinson, who's a senior. I'm going to guess you're here for economics class.
Government, yeah.
Government class, sorry, yeah. And then Alan Robinson, who is also our art teacher, who teaches 8th grade and high school art classes. And more importantly, maybe more importantly, is Jillian's dad. So, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for your endurance.
Yeah, really, impressive. Yeah, you've done your civic duty for
Come to a budget workshop one.
So we'll enter into the adjournment phase. Next meeting and date locations, we go through May 12th on here. The next meeting will include a budget workshop, so we will start at 6 o'clock again with the board meeting starting at 7. And optimistically ending at 8. I see you're
I know.
very optimistic here. And the 31st will be a regular board meeting, correct?
Yes.
And then you can read on from there, so. Old agenda topics, sports mergers, as it relates to budget is still on there. I sort of drew a line through negotiations and the modified girls lacrosse since we're addressing those. The dashboard discussion, and then the active consent, which is going to the policy, correct? Next policy meeting? Or-
It won't be until, I
Okay.
don't want to take it off till after it comes.
Okay.
It's just a reminder.
Oh, no, but will that go to the next policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which is in April, right?
Well, it's during spring break, so I think I heard rumor that it was not gonna be then.
Any new agenda topic items? I take silence, it's not negative. So adjournment of the meeting, recommended action is, we adjourn the meeting, may I have a motion, please? Thank you, Joan. Second?
Yes.
Joan was a mainstay, you guys were fighting.
That's right.
Thank you. So adjourn the meeting at 8:13. How's that? Thank you very much. And again, thank you for coming.
Which one?
That's me?
Sure.
Well, I was like, where's Mark? I wanted you to know that I had a nice conversation with Sam
Oh, I
Perkins.
don't know.
Oh, come on.
They haven't told
Yeah,
me.
same graduating class.
When does this have to be invited?
April sometime.
We'll get him on board here.
Okay.
And this is,
Yeah, I know, I'm
I didn't put it on handouts because we need to vote on this next time, so I printed it out and gave it to everybody. It's nominal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would you be the one that would sign Julian's paper?
I can.